All right, well, yeah, it'd probably have to start with juvenile hall. I think in high school, probably about my junior, senior year, I spent some time in juvenile hall, weekends. I remember going to school there for a little bit, a few months. Somehow I was able to get back to Bullard and graduate. I don't think I actually went back to school there, but somehow I got my diploma. But anyways, then after that, short stints in county jail. I think I did satellite jail a year. Back then it was at like the old bread factory downtown. And then there was like Wasco 90-day op. So that's just one of those periods where you're at the beginning of your prison career and they're gonna send you there and see if you're cut out for prison. It's kind of a trying to scare you type of thing, I think. But
so how did they do that? Do they do 45 days there and 45 days in county, or is it 90?
So my memory isn't great, but I remember it was definitely not the full 90 days. It varied in how long you were in there. I think I was probably in there no more than 60 days. I think probably close to 2 months. But then yeah, there's your downtime where you're at Fresno County dealing with your case or waiting to go or whatever. So I don't know like the total of how long that.
Do they do? So a lot of the public assumes that it's like a psych evaluation, and that's also where they classify where you're, like what level you are.
Yeah,
you want to get into that.
The thing about those 90-day ops, though, it's all of that. Yes, it's a psychological evaluation. It's to see whatever they're trying to figure out about who you are as a person, as a criminal, as a potential threat, as an inmate, all of that stuff. But it's also an introduction to gladiator school. Like you go there, and Wasco is absolutely no joke. You're in there. It's a giant fishbowl of all unclassified people. So,
oh wow! So yeah, so theoretically, a guy who's like a level 2,
absolutely,
barely medium security, could be in there with a level 4 guy during that 90 days.
Yep.
Wow!
And so it's almost a science experiment, a social experiment, because it's a big auditorium type of thing, or I don't know, a big open area. You have your guard tower up top. They're up there with the Ruger Mini 14s, it's just a bunch of bunk beds, and people are stressed the fuck out. They're waiting. They don't know what's going to happen with their case. You got people that are in there like myself on 90-day ops, where eyes wide open, you're figuring out your surroundings. You're like, okay, this is what it's about to look like. Of course, you have heavy politicking from the beginning as soon as you come in. So it's just, to me, it was a big introduction to the prison system and the dynamics.
Speaking of that, there's any of us who've been through the system, whether you end up with 1 year, 6 months, or 6 years, or whatever, one of the most stressful times is when you don't know the outcome yet, when you're going through the phases and all that. Yeah. Speak to what goes on through your head and what you have to do to keep yourself sane. What you did in your situation.
I think at that time, I was in a different headspace, in a different life space. So my mentality was different than when I was dealing with my federal case, which is of course a lot more time that I was facing, a lot more exposure. But in that 90-day off stay case, I'm still full on running an organization on the streets. I have people that are holding my shit together, people that are still out, selling for me and all that kind of stuff. So it was more of a, how can I manage as best I can with this a little time that I can and get out of this to get back to run my organization, while you're also stressed out dealing with phone calls and making sure people are doing this or that. And you can only do so much from in there. So
they record the calls, they monitor the calls.
So you're accepting also that whatever's going on, people running your shit, it's not optimal, it's not kosher, like there's people ripping you off, stuff like that. So you're dealing with that. Of course, you have your homies that are in charge, but nobody is you. Nobody is the one that built that ran that. So it's not running as smooth. So anyways, my mind was a little bit more there, stressed out. I wasn't on the page of, oh shit, I got to change my life. Oh shit, like I don't want to be here. And to be honest, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked seeing these different aspects of different cultures, life, politics, prison environments. Like I like that. I soak that up. I learn, I observe, I adjust. I thrive off of that. So not to say I wanted to do time, But anytime I'm in those situations, it's not so much fear, it's just more awareness, and I'm sharpening my own tools, I guess.
Well, I know what you're talking about. When I was 16, I was arrested while out stealing cars. Sorry, Mom, if you hear this, but yes, you know, you picked me up that next day. But I was booked into the A unit at Juvenile Hall. And that was a unit known for like the top 50 worst juveniles in Fresno County were there. And rather than being worried or scared when I was being let in there, I was excited because I was like, I can't wait to tell my bros later on, look where me and the other two guys that were arrested with me that evening, well, look where we all got to go, you know, and it's just, speak to that mentality, because a lot of regular normies or regular folks will be like, that's got to be insane to be in a jail or a prison or a juvenile institution and looking at it like this could be exciting. Or
right. I mean, you're still driven by adrenaline and fear and awareness, but it's what you do with that. You know what I mean? Some people crumble under that and it turns into an experience that everyone experienced, and other people thrive and build off of that. But I think at that younger age, especially in juvenile, you're very much puffing out your chest. You're very much more proud of where you're at if your heels are sunk in that lifestyle, you know, and it's a stripe on your shirt type of a thing. But my mentality was slightly different fast forwarding to the federal situation, because it was later in life, and you know,
you got more maturity, you got more literally time, life under your belt.
You got mouths to feed.
With the politics angle, obviously you're of Asian descent. How did that play when you got to the Wasco? You went to a school, Bullard, for the people outside of our area. At the time, Bullard was a suburban school, and great school. A lot of kids went very far who went there, and you know. But so how did all that? How did that work
I'm
with
Japanese
you?
and Mexican, so we'll call it a Japsican.
You were like the one character from American Me, the the Asian dude that handled business in there.
So you can, I mean, at the time, I can kind of go a few different ways. You know what I mean? You can run with the Asians, or you know, you can run with Paisas if you're Mexican and speak Spanish, which I was not, or if you're from Fresno and you're Mexican, you're pretty much going to get you know, adopted by the Bulldogs, which that wasn't something that I chose to take part in. One of my best friends, when we were in high school, we were thick as thieves, and we kind of started off selling weed a little bit in the very beginning, and it was pretty clear early on that wasn't the direction he was going to go. So I went that direction of selling, and he went that direction of running with certain, you know, local gangs, we'll call it that. So I never had interest in that, mainly because there's no money in that. Like for me, that's how I felt. I felt like you're doing work for other people, you're under other people's thumb, and you're not really making money, and you're a part of a family or whatever, but that was just not appealing to me. And once you get in the system, most people know it's not the best group to be affiliated in there. You're going to be segregated, and they're pretty much banging with everybody almost all the time. So that wasn't what I wanted to do. So early on, I think in there, it was more running with the Asians. Fast forwarding to my federal bid, I ran with Islanders. So Islanders, you know, that's my Asian descent, Japanese, whatever, but I clicked with them for different reasons, and that's who I settled in
So
with.
like Polynesians, guys from the Pacific Islands. For
Big Goose, yep.
Nice. Yeah, the you know, I noticed that dynamic too with, I'd have Mexican friends, but I would know that if we all got arrested together and we were all shipped out wherever we ended up, I would be forced one way, they would be in another boat. A lot of the, like you said, a lot of the Mexican guys from our area, I guess if they're not Bulldogs, they could be Norteños technically too, or whatever. But it's still we're not allowed to necessarily interact with certain folks, and it's really weird for people outside of California. They think of us as like a real progressive state, right? And you know, racially integrated and all that. But you know, when you speak to the whole mentality of in there versus out here? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
Where you can't, you know, you certain people you could be cool with out here, but you can't in there.
Yeah, in there, politics rule everything, and rules are set in stone, and have been for decades, really. You know what I mean? So yeah, any of the multicultural, whatever, you know, through the progressive California.
Sure.
And
yeah, our state government. We have a very progressive government.
That's
now.
out the window, and it's there's designated groups who can fuck with each other. There's people that can do business with each other. There's people that can't even talk. So, and all of that is self-enforcement within each group. So your people are gonna make sure you're in line with how that's supposed to work, and you're gonna need to learn quick. You got to be a fast learner in there, or else you're gonna pay the price. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely political in there. But funny thing is the politics are what keep it safe in there. They'll keep the order, and all of the administration staff, CEOs, they understand that. They understand that dynamic and that culture, and they foster it. So you have your LTs and you have your regular correctional officers and stuff that they follow suit with understanding the politics and respecting that. And even when a lot of big situations go down, or to prevent those, they're dealing with all the shot callers and the heads, and trying to have them deal with squashing certain things.
Sure, it makes it easier for them to just have someone that they can have as a designated leaders of whatever group. And
some groups are more organized and more disciplined. Others aren't, and they're sloppier, and those are where usually you have more of the problems from and stuff like that. So
now you said you ran with the Islanders in the federal system. The federal system also, they break it down based on which state you come from too, right? Like there's a California,
exactly.
You know, there's a California guys, and then
yeah. So in California, you're of course broken in through gangs and culture, and that still does apply in the feds. But then you also have that dynamic of what state you're from, for sure. And then like in the state, Asians, natives, Islanders, they're going to be more associated as others. Okay, and then in the feds, you don't really have that. Asians will link up and run with Islanders when the time comes, but it's Islanders are their own separate. And same, some of the same alliances, Islanders and natives definitely have each other's back and get along in there. I've gone and sweat. The natives get to go sweat in their
sweat lodge, right?
Sweat lodges, yeah, they have there. It's a cultural thing, so they'll allow Islanders to come in there in select situations to sweat with them. So that's a pretty honorable and respectful thing. Kind of an olive branch that's extended. So
nice. Speaking of getting into the federal system, it was Operation Green Speaker, right? That
I don't think that was necessarily what I was wrapped up in. So those that maybe I've worked with in the past, or people that I've ran with or whatever, might have been.
Were you in the system prior to that case? That case was 2005 to 2006.
I was prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so mine was prior to that. Yep.
You dealt with a lot of the same guys that ended up in that case too.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we a lot of us did. One of the guys that informed on a bunch of these people, you know, he was able to get sort of his narrative put into everybody's cases very quickly. He's one of the first ones that dropped, and he's a guy that, for my audience, I'm not going to say his name, but you know, he was involved with some of this gambling stuff I was doing, and one or two of the casino nights that I held, and he had a very mysterious traffic incident that happened 5 years before, where he was pulled over with a lot of money. He told all the rest of us that, it wasn't a big deal. You know, I had to pay a lawyer a lot of cash, and looking back, we believe that he probably started informing literally from that day, because that future
and that's
cases.
how it works. Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, they don't just want an informant for that one situation. They're going to juice it and get what they can and get the people to work with them on a more regular basis. So I wouldn't doubt that by any means. And
with your situation, you had some guys that informed on you as well, right?
Right.
Speak to the feeling of betrayal that comes with guys you trusted, guys that you were brothers with, guys you grew up with, that do this stuff.
Right. I'm trying to avoid getting into too many details.
Sure.
But the main person that ratted on me was pretty much one of my best friends and somebody that I knew when we were younger. Someone that was a big part of my operation towards the end and held a lot of responsibility, kind of like my right-hand man. So that definitely didn't sit well, and he was aware of my life, my family, what I had. So I take it extra personal when you're somebody that knows me like that and still chooses to do that. Every action has a consequence. You know what I mean? So
yeah, a lot of the guys, in today's world, most people don't take too much retribution unless they're behind bars and other stuff. But no matter what, I've noticed with guys who've been formed in other cases, a lot of times they're later on in life, they regret that and their lives go bad for them.
100%.
A lot of times the feds and the government, they choose problematic people to work with.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
sure
it just goes
there's
even
psychological profiling that's done to where they know to what extent this person's going to be, a good informant for them. But yeah, that's absolutely what happened to him. I think that once I went in, I tried to kind of close that chapter in my life and not keep up with who's doing what and what's happening out there. I tried to have a different focus, and I think I did a good job in the beginning. There's some deviations when I was inside doing time that got me, shipped around different places and stuff. But for the most part, I kind of didn't continue to pay attention to what was going on. But after I got out, I definitely heard plenty that he started trying to basically fill my shoes and continue with a lot of my contacts that he was aware of, and did a very shitty job and pissed a lot of people off and got himself a reputation for working with the law when it was convenient for him, and kind of one foot in, one foot out.
Sure.
And he was card trading back and forth, like, hey, I got in a little trouble here. Here's a few names, whatever, something like that. And I remember a time when I think I'd heard that he had MS or something like that, and there's another time I heard he got pistol whipped, and so he was just fully embraced being a piece of shit, and that all will come back to you, and it did. So
yeah, in fact, one thing I've noticed is that principles stand the test of time, and principled people stand the test of adversity.
Sure.
And guys like yourself, we're filming now, and the folks here can see a little bit of the backdrop, but we're filming inside a very lovely studio, very nice place that you do your tattoo work from. And so obviously you had certain principles in business.
Yeah, principles in life which carry over to principles in business, and if you can maintain those principles, you're going to build a network of resources and people that have your back. So the way I look at it is, if you stay consistent with those principles and that language of respect and honoring your word and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter how many times that you fall in life, how low you are if you're completely on the ground, which there's a time when that happened to me getting out of prison. I had zero. It doesn't even matter, because your network is always there, and you have 10 hands putting their hands out ready to be like, come on, let's go, picking you up. So that is the most valuable thing to me that comes from principles, is the network you build of a lifelong pool of help. People that are there to be like, I know him, I know he's solid, I know he's good for it, I want to help him out. Or even more so, this dude's going to be successful, I want a piece of that, so I'm going to help him out right now, and hopefully he won't forget me. And that's going to carry over to all legit business or underworld type stuff. So
yeah, and with the weed business, speaking of all that, one of the first lessons that I learned going from buying, let's say, a pound to a few pounds at once, but going up to like 20 of them, was that it's not as routine as getting a $20 sack.
No.
When you'll tell them a certain time, like I'm ready to do this time, and they're yeah, and then they get delayed or they get spooked, and they're like, no, I want to do it this way now. And
Right.
I figured out very quickly that I was reliable, but not everybody else was.
And that's something like once I got to that level and I'm dealing with 50 plus packs at a time, like you're always searching for the person in the situation to reduce the amount of shadiness, to reduce the amount of inconsistency and
the price hikes that go with every time there's another head involved.
Yeah, and there's so many. So you're constantly profiling people, not necessarily to see if they're working for the law or whatever, but you're profiling because it's a jungle out there. It's a dog eat dog world, and when you find those individuals that have principles that are in line with you, is when you can make some real money.
Yeah, you're right. You get people that when you're in this kind of a business, you meet so many different types of people that you almost become sort of a profiler in a way, and you hear so many problems from people, good things as well. You get so much like input from people because they come over.
Right.
Pot smokers are notorious for telling their pot dealers it's like a sort of a counseling session. But yeah, here you're buying my ounce off me. I'll listen to you for 5 minutes.
But you're always profiling and taking mental notes. So when it comes time, if you need a foot soldier for this or that, then you have the pool of people that are in your mind of possibilities, and then you have to weigh the pros and cons, and you know what I mean? Like all of those things come into play. But everything that applies in this world 100% applies in the business world. So if that's who you are as a person, and like myself when I got out, and you apply that, business kind of comes easy. I mean, if you adhere to those principles, it just and be patient. Be patient. So many people these days are so impatient.
Oh yeah, that's one of the single biggest problems in today's world is people want everything right then and there.
Discipline and patience.
And they wouldn't. A lot of the younger folks, and I don't mean to sound like one of those old guys from the '70s that used to tell us this in the '90s, but a lot of the younger folks won't be able to make it with having to wait for just.
They don't even have the work ethic these days.
Yeah, and another thing too is there's no manual on how to move weight. People will tell you tips and this and that, but I had one or two really close calls in other states. I came real close one time. I believe I was set up in Michigan once, and I was lucky. I kind of walked through a trap that either the DEA or the Michigan State Police, don't know to this day whose it was, but I know we were in one. Come close to getting searched in other cities. Have you had couriers yourself, close calls, and learning experiences, if you will?
Yeah.
If you want to speak to
many
one or two of those.
Involving large amounts of money at times. There's an incident, I was in Minneapolis, something like that. You're staying in lavish presidential suites and big hotels and stuff, and as a 20-something-year-old kid, you're feeling like Scarface, top of the world, and you're blowing in the room, and you're in a room where there's a separate elevator just to get up to that room, not realizing that there's maybe one other presidential suite, and they're smelling weed. Like I remember, in that situation, the I don't know, bellhop or worker or whoever, whatever, came up and was banging on the door, and I probably had 70, 80 grand in a suitcase because I was there to pick up money, and I get kicked out and escorted out because I was smoking weed like an idiot in there. And when I got down to check out, I'm almost 1,000,000% sure it just felt like there was suits around, and every time you'd look one way, they'd look away, but I feel like there was undercovers down there, and I'm over here kind of hearing that whole Mission Impossible. With the suitcase, and I'm sweating profusely, trying to stand in line to check out with this suitcase full of money. And in that situation, I was able to call a cab, and me and the girl I was with, we burned out. And the whole time you're expecting, the lights and sirens, and it never happened. So that was one of several situations that are similar like that. And it's quite a ride.
Speaking
in
of
terms
that,
of adrenaline and all that.
Do you feel like you could feel the presence of law enforcement.
Yeah.
At times.
It feels like everything slows down, and then you can hear very clearly. You can almost hear conversations super far away, and your vision gets like, it's a crazy experience, and one that I'm happy that I don't have to deal with anymore.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Looking over the back and stuff like that. But all of those, I feel very much have had not to say that I don't have regrets. And wish I made different choices, but all of those have contributed to, I think, ultimately one way or another, my success, and this world, the discipline, getting hit over the head so many damn times. And when you're starting off in a legit world in a new industry that you're not familiar with, you can take those lumps, no problem, especially being in prison where you have to wait for everything. You have to wait in line for breakfast. You have to wait to get a Tylenol. Like, there's so much waiting that it just develops this immense patience. So when you get out, everybody's so fast. Now. I need it instant. Delivered tomorrow. Like, being patient, you're so different than the rest of society, and I think it helps. So
yeah, I had a time where the very first time I ever went through a ticket check on a Greyhound was something else, because I'm in Vegas, and you remember every dude in California fears being arrested for pot in Las Vegas, because you know how the law used to be. It's different now, but back in the day, you get caught with a seed, you're going away for 10 years in Nevada, and they got the casino money, tax revenue to build those prisons. And so with a ticket check, what the metros do, they go on, any police force, they send their squad on, and they tell everybody you got to show your tickets, because they want to, if they suspect that dope's moving on a bus or a train, they're allowed to ask everybody to show their ticket.
Right.
If you don't, you stand out, and you automatically, if you weren't suspect number one, you're going to be right after that.
Right.
But I remember, I'm like, I'm going to here, and they're looking at me, and I felt like the cops were looking through me. They just looked at my ticket, they look at me, and I had this chick next to me who I just started trying to mac on, so it looked like we were sort of a couple.
Right.
And it felt like they were looking through me, and it's just, you get that sixth sense with these guys, and it's something else. So with your situation, when did you first hit the federal system, or the course? Was it 2004? When was it when you first got in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I fell in 2001, and then I started like in 2003.
Were you so you were operating obviously prior to 9/11, and so that's
9/11 had just happened.
Okay.
And I think that slowed down the FBI and the court systems pretty considerably, and so that kind of worked in my favor, I guess.